Hello everybody and welcome back to The Walking Dead, and today we'll be talking about all things The Walking Dead Season 11, and we'll be doing a review for the final season of The Walking Dead and what my overall thoughts on the final season as a whole. With the all 24 episodes now out, let's talk about all the episodes and what I think worked and did not work for the final season of The Walking Dead. First of all, the final season definitely shouldn't have been 24 episodes. I feel like that is way too long, and this season does suffer a lot from being very formatted and having lots of filler. There's definitely not enough story for the Commonwealth, which is already a very boring arc in the comics, and the Reaper arc, which just felt very rushed and it could have been 4 episodes. They definitely was like, okay, we have one season, let's do 24 episodes, let's stretch everything out. Both of these arcs I feel like could have been going on at the same time, and definitely maybe 8 episodes could have been cut off this season. I feel like there's definitely maybe 2 episodes or 3 in some cases in each of the 3 parts that could have been removed and it wouldn't have affected the story at all. This season is just way too long, and going back to the formatting, this season is suffering very heavily from that big format thing of 1, 8 or 9/16 being the only basically important episodes. With Angela Kang coming in season 9, and with season 9 and 10 kind of breaking that format with big episodes being 15, 5, 7 and 12, like random, you'd think, okay, Angela Kang's gonna do a very good final season and not be formatted, but no. This season suffers a lot from being very formatted, and the only important episodes are episodes like 1, 2, 9, maybe 13 and 14, 16, 17 and 24, and it really kind of suffers because those middle episodes that are in the middle of those big moments just kind of sit there and do absolutely nothing, and it is way worse at the start of this season. I feel like the first 8 episodes really suffer from filler, and the writers realizing they don't have enough content for 24 episodes. They must push the Commonwealth story back, even though it was set up in season 10. Even at the end of season 9, it was set up, the Commonwealth stuff. But no, they just push the Commonwealth soldiers back. They're like, we will deal with you in part 2. Part 1 is about the Reapers, which we just met. And they really could have maybe only done 3 episodes with the Reapers. There's only 3 episodes worth of content for the Reapers. So the season just has 2 big arcs, more or less. We have the Reaper arc and we have the Commonwealth arc. And overall, the Reaper arc is absolutely one of the worst arcs The Walking Dead has ever done. We have done some really bad things on the show. Some bad things have really happened, like the Savior arc being stretched over 2 seasons, when it could have easily been just 1. It is literally so small in the comics. I don't know how they stretched it that far in the show. But no, we saw the Reaper arc, which is even worse. So it was a really bad start off for the final season. Those first 9 episodes really kind of make it seem like it's another Walking Dead 10C. It's just kind of very bottle, very bad, those first 9 episodes. However, when we get into the Commonwealth arc, about episode 10, that's when I feel like the final season really does start, and that's when the final season really actually happens. And that is where I would say you should have started the final season. Just cut out most of the Reaper arc, maybe have 2 episodes of them struggling, Commonwealth come in, then start. That's what it should have been like, because the Commonwealth arc is good. I like it. There is some pacing issues. There is issues with filler still because they're staying to that very strict format, which sucks. With a lot of it just being talking and characters doing dumb things. However, it is definitely better than the comics version. I definitely like the Commonwealth in the show than the comics, because in the show they add the extra threat of the variant walkers and stuff like that. So it is way more interesting to watch the Commonwealth then read the Commonwealth. So it's not all bad. It's just one of the biggest issues about the season is it definitely should have been shorter, and this season has massive pacing issues. Some things in this season take ages to happen. I did just say about the Reaper arc, that should have been 2 episodes or 3 at most. Instead it was 9. That was completely filler. They definitely should have got rid of that. But going into the Commonwealth arc, they still did have pacing issues. Nothing really happens in the Commonwealth arc up until episode 17. So we go in episode 10/9, and it's just our characters living in the Commonwealth for a really long time until episode 17, where there's an actual conflict. It's solved, then we get another conflict, and then that gets solved, and it's just really annoying. I just feel like they really were bumbling their way through the Commonwealth arc at points. It could have been slightly more condensed. It could have had maybe the variant walkers be a bigger part of the entire season. That is something I have an issue with. They just appear in the last 8 episodes. They could have been better if they appeared in part 1 or part 2, and they would have been maybe the big villain through the entire season. And the Reaper and Commonwealth arc are just 2 arcs that were dealing with the variants, but the variants were overall the big threat. There are some massive positives of this season. I need to stop dunking on this. Some big positives is that we do get a very pretty show, and this is definitely the best looking season. I really like some of the shots we get in this season. There's only maybe 1 or 2 times where I would have complained about how bad I hated a certain shot. Like, one thing to mind is when we had that chase scene with Daryl and that CRM soldier and we had shaky cam. That's the only time I've been like, why did they film that? But every other shot in this looks amazing. We have some great sets at times, and we have music absolutely amazing. One thing I say about the Reaper arc is I really loved their kind of jungle theme. I got the Predator vibe when I heard their music. So the music and the presentation and everything like that is really good in this season. It's definitely the best season for the cinematography, I would have to say. I also do really like the acting. The acting is really good. Overall, there's no kind of down things. So I'm like, what are you doing here? You're a terrible actor. Other than maybe some cringeworthy things between Lydia and Elijah. But I do want to talk about the characters, because this season does have a little issue with some characters being massively shafted for no particular reason. The big ones are definitely Ezekiel was shafted all the way throughout the entire season, except maybe part B. I think part B is where the characters that were shafted in part 1 and part 3 shined. So characters like Ezekiel and Aaron, they're massive characters, but they were shafted in part 1. They were barely in it. I don't even remember a single scene with Ezekiel from part 1. And we had part 3, where those 2 characters really did nothing, except for maybe Ezekiel doing a bit near the end with Negan. Those characters did absolutely nothing. But part 2, I would have to say part 2 is the best part of this season, because it's where most of the characters you care about actually do get time to shine, and it is where each character does get their own part. I feel like in part 1 it's about a small group, which is like Maggie, Negan and that lot, and part 3 is about the main cast, like the big kind of A-listers, which are Daryl, Carol, Negan, Maggie and the Commonwealth people. But part 2 is definitely where everyone gets the time to shine, and I definitely say is my favourite part of season 11. This season is just very mixed matched, with some parts of the season being very good, like part 2, which has, I feel like, the least amount of filler. Like part 1 is the worst with the most filler, part 3 has maybe 3 or 4, maybe 2 episodes that are filler, but part 2 has maybe only 1 episode that are filler. Each episode is very important, it starts very strong and it ends very strong. Part 2 is definitely where most of the story is, and I would have to say the budget is a bit whiffy and off some points. Like, the last couple of episodes of season 11 do feel a little cheap, whereas maybe the first few ones do feel like quite good. It's like they had a lot of money at the start and they didn't budget it well, so as you went through the season just felt cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and then you see the final episode and you're like, oh, that's where all the budget went to. I also have a massive gripe with this final season, is we get 3 main character deaths in the final season. And that really sucks, because before this, the only other main character death we got outside of the villains was Sadiq in episode 10/7, and we had to wait to season 11/9 for Alden's death, then get Luke and Rosita in season 11/24. Why was Andrew Kang so scared to kill off main characters for the final season? And it really annoys me, because I was going to the season expecting lots of character deaths, expecting things to just drop like rocks. It's the final season, no one should have plot armor. But everyone in this season just has massive plot armor throughout the entire thing. Until maybe the final episode where you think anyone could die that doesn't already have a spin-off. So it really annoys me that for the final season of a show about anyone could die at any moment, no one dies. It just really sucks. And I just feel like Angela Kang is just too scared to kill off characters because she doesn't want to be gimpled. She doesn't want to have the fans hate her so much that she would get maybe fired or maybe blacklisted from writing in the future. So she plays it too safe. I feel like this final season does feel too safe, and it doesn't feel very kind of big and bombastic. That is one thing I have to say. This final season does feel very small scale until maybe the last 2 episodes. This season does have a lot of small issues that really do get on my nerves thinking about this entire season as a whole, but I do have to say some more positives. I really do like the casting for the new characters this season. Every single character that was casted for this season is perfect. We have a perfect Mercer. No one else can play Mercer. Lance, he was basically a tiny character in the books. They made him one of the best villains in The Walking Dead. I feel I really liked Lance. Pamela, I was a bit iffy about. However, near the end, once they got rid of Lance and her son Sebastian, which was already perfect casting also, they really did well with all the new characters. All those new characters worked. They all had good villain reasons. Like, they weren't like this villain for no reason, like kind of how Negan was at the start. He was just, I'm a villain because I'm a villain. Our characters being villainous makes sense. They're corrupt politicians, or in Pamela's case, she lost her entire family. She just wants revenge. I really, really like the acting for those kind of villains, and the villains themselves, all perfect. So we definitely have some really good villains for the final season. Outside Pope and Lee, I feel like those villains were just very underused and not very good. But overall, Season 11 was a very good way to say goodbye to The Walking Dead. I might have some issues with the season, but I do have to give credit where credit is due. I think the ending of the season was executed very well. I do like how all the character stories, or more or less all the things that they teased at and everything throughout the entire Walking Dead is answered, and we do get a very nice definitive conclusion for The Walking Dead. The ending was very good to see Rick and Michonne come back, and I like how their story and what they got was incorporated with the ending and not a post-credit scene. However, there will be a slight issue, is that in a few years' time, when somebody finds The Walking Dead and they don't know about the spin-offs and they watch all 11 seasons of The Walking Dead, that ending might not age too well because it ends on a cliffhanger. So they were like, what? There's meant to be a season 12? No. So it is a good ending if you know there's going to be spin-offs. I just felt like the ending should have been a little more like finite and not, okay, these are all the spin-offs, go do that. But I'm happy they didn't ram it down our throats until the very end where they set up the Rick and Michonne one the most. So I'm really happy. The stories and the characters were quite well. I think my favourite story was the completion of Negan's redemption arc with Maggie. That was all executed very, very well. And I will have to give some massive credit to the writers. Even though this is not my favourite season, I do like how they were able to achieve what they did with the source material they had. Like, going into this season, I had some quite low expectations because we know they couldn't do the ending because they killed off all the characters that are important to the Commonwealth arc, like Carl, Rick, Michonne, and we had characters that were never even in the Commonwealth arc, like Rosita, Daryl, Carol, Ezekiel. Some of those characters don't even exist in the comics. And then the Commonwealth arc itself wasn't very good in the comics. It was very boring, but in the show they did make it way better. So I do have to give a lot of credit for when they actually were doing the Commonwealth stuff, not the Reaper stuff, and they adapted it well. They changed some very good things that I think definitely improved it and made this the superior arc. Like, normally I would say the comics have the superior versions of their stories, but I would say for the Commonwealth, the show is the superior version. It's just more action heavy. There's an extra threat with the variant walkers. Pamela is just way better, I feel. They get rid of Sebastian and they give it to Pamela, which I think worked well. And we had Lance. Lance is definitely one of my favourite villains, and that's from a character from the book that was basically nothing, a side character. So they did so well at adapting and making the source material better for the Commonwealth, I feel. Now let's do my one sentence, that's one word overall review for the final season of The Walking Dead. And this season is quite mixed. It definitely shouldn't have been 3 parts, it definitely should have been 2. A couple less episodes. There wasn't enough story, it was too formatted, I feel. There wasn't enough deaths for the final season. We definitely had too much filler. The Reaper arc sucked. However, the positives is that it looked amazing, it sounded amazing, the acting was amazing. We had some cool sets. However, I did have some issues at the start of the Commonwealth arc where they were like, we're only going to show this part of the Commonwealth, but near the end we did see more parts of the Commonwealth, which I did like. So we had cool acting. We also had some very cool, interesting ideas with the variants coming back from season 1 and 2. We did see an improvement on the Commonwealth arc from the comics, and overall they had a solid, good ending. I was expecting a meh ending, but no, the ending of The Walking Dead is a good ending, and most long run shows can't stick the landing. I feel like The Walking Dead did. However, I will have to say, this is not as good as season 9 or 10. This is definitely the worst of the 3 seasons Angela Kang wrote. So this is definitely a solid season. That's what I have to say. A solid season / solid ending for such a great show. That is my sentence / one word over review. But please tell me down below, what did you think about the final season of The Walking Dead? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions and everything down below. Give me a little review for yourself. But this is it for me today. So if you want more Walking Dead content, please look on the screen. If you want to see my reviews for season 11, look in the top right and you'll see my episode 1 review, and you can follow that through all the way to episode 24. If you want to see something recommended for you, look in the bottom, and if you want to see my latest video, look in the top left. But this is it for me today, so make sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe to help out the channel and keep updated with all things Walking Dead. 2 videos a week every week. But this is it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and talk to you later.